Welcome to First Things First. It's Tuesday. Gosh, that kind of day. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall.
It just started.
I know.
How can it be that kind of day?
I know. We've been up for hours.
All right, listen, I'm not the one. I am the least veteran television member of the show, but let me give you a piece of advice.
Oh.
Okay, if I may.
Okay. Easy.
If you're going to make announcing the day of the week a big part of starting the show,
I should know the day of the week.
Maybe write it down.
Oh, hold on. So we're two can play this game. If stats are going to be your thing, maybe remember your stats.
I brought my wrong folder. Okay. I brought my wrong folder. But I've got them committed to memory.
I know what day it is.
Chris Carter,
you asked me 3 times.
Happy Tuesday. Good to see you, brother.
I'm flying by myself. I'm going to do a hell of a show.
No, you're not.
I'm
Where's
flying
your
by
phone?
myself. No, I'm flying by myself.
You forgot your phone today.
Yeah, but that ain't no big deal. That ain't no problem for me.
Nothing. Okay, we're all good to go. Hey,
I can bring up my computer because everything on my phone goes right to my computer in my house.
What are you saying, Cece?
Baby Sue, what up, baby?
Another night of big news in the NBA. To all those opposed to the super teams in the National Basketball Association, I present to you our top story. The Golden State Warriors signed DeMarcus Cousins, Boogie Cousins, to a 1-year, $5.3 million deal. Or in other words, the best team in basketball by far just got better. Cousins is recovering from a torn Achilles, didn't have a ton of other offers, and called this his chess move. Classic H4 to G6. He's hoping to be fully recovered by training camp, and many speculate he won't be back until late December. Cece, what was your reaction when you heard about the signing?
I'm glad you mentioned that he said it's a chess move, because if this is not checkers, like, I don't know how to play checkers or chess. This is no chess move.
Thank you.
All right, this is no. You think he couldn't got the mid-cap exception?
The mid-level exception elsewhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah, $5 million on the second day of free agency, basically, right?
Yeah, this isn't light years ahead, Golden State.
No.
This is a rich guy finding a sack of money that was left at his driveway.
I mean, this is a guy who, from a business standpoint, I question how savvy it is, and I know it's a panic move. It's a desperation. Man, his phone wasn't ringing off the hook when free agency came in at midnight Eastern Standard Time. On say, LeBron was meeting with Magic Johnson, all these other players, things were happening. Boogie Cousins, no. In his feelings, panicked, reached out to Golden State. Golden State didn't even have him on the radar. Oh, who? Boogie, you're in the NBA? Oh, you're.
They didn't think it was. They thought it was a joke. They didn't think it was. Yesterday, you and I argued about Boogie Cousins briefly because I was asked if the Lakers should want to sign him. And it was, to me, really depending on how long. Are we talking about a 2-year, $15 to $20 million deal? Then, yeah, 3 years, probably not. And Chris says to me, he's like, well, you pick the terms. It's our show. Yeah. And I said flippantly, I said, yeah, give him the mid-level exception, then I'd happily take him. And I said that sarcastically because it was laughable.
And the Lakers had basically just given Rondo twice as much.
The Lakers, the team that had Boogie, gave Julius Randle $18 million over 2 years and say, oh, well, Boogie didn't want a 2-year commitment. Julius Randle's deal, which pays him $9 million this year, has a player option for the next year. They would have happily given that to Boogie Cousins.
Boogie didn't want it.
Well, listen, what happened is, and I understand Boogie told Mark Spears, I had 0 offers. That has been, listen, Sham Charania, who is outstanding, says that's not true. Zach Lowe talks about, now what Boogie didn't get was any full max offers.
Right.
What Boogie didn't get was any even 3-year
Which
max
is not surprising.
Or he didn't get the DeAndre Jordan.
The 1 year, $25 million that DeAndre got.
But coming off a torn Achilles, he should have known he's not going to get a max offer until he comes back, shows he can play, that he's healthy, and he can put the numbers
No,
up.
Jenna, I disagree with that. This offseason, people were talking about, and at the end of the regular season, people were talking about, man, they got to give him the max. The reason why you got to give him the max because you got to be able to protect. I've learned this from Nick. You got to be able to protect the asset.
So what happened?
And by the way, I may be overstated the marketplace to a degree to where New Orleans could have protected the asset without giving him the max. Maybe they clearly didn't have to give him the max. But what they had to do, what they could have done, was give him a multi-year commitment for up close to $20 million a year, not $30 million a year up around the max. But there's a huge gulf between that and $5.3 million. And so, I just want the audience to see. People are going to be like, well, free agency this year. Not a lot of money in free agency this year. Can we just show America what some people who my guess is most of the audience does not know what teams these guys play for. How about Doug McDermott? Dougie McBuckets. He got 7.3. Mario Hezonja.
For 3 years.
Right, absolutely. Mario Hezonja. How about he gets 6.5? Aaron Baines. Man bun Aaron Baines gets 5.5.
These are all players making more than Boogie Cousins.
That all signed in the last 72 hours. These are not just guys making more, guys that in this marketplace.
Take it back, Nick. Tell us why. Tell us what happened, why he signed.
Because ain't nobody want to compete anymore, man. Because that's why. Because there's a new paradigm in this league where evidently it is just, not only is it okay, but I am the one who is going to be criticized for daring to say I miss an NBA where there was some actual suspense about what the end of the movie was going to be.
Not even parody, just suspense.
Just some suspense, just the thought. Because we have gone, there was once upon a time where all sports writers and all sports commentators appeared to be 60-something-year-old white guys, and they all criticized athletes at all times for everything. And now we've swung so far in the other direction that if you dare criticize any athlete for anything, you don't get it. You don't understand that, though, Kevin Durant taking less so Boogie can make this is smart. Well, actually, Kevin Durant taking less doesn't help them sign Boogie. It does save Joe Lacob $18 million in tax money. Good for Joe Lacob, who now only has $7.2 billion. But the idea that the response for Boogie's feelings being hurt to be, you know what? Let me just guarantee myself a ring. What's that ring worth? I really want to know. What is this year's, because let's just give it to them, what is this year's Golden State Warriors championship ring worth? When you win 73 games, they replace Harrison Barnes with Kevin Durant. You sweep the finals, you replace JaVale McGee with Boogie Cousins. What is even happening to this league I love so much? What is going on? I don't know what's going on.
Well, all we can say is that this generation of athletes is totally different. And we don't like to get into the old man conversation because we go back to Michael Jordan and his era and all these players, Patrick Ewing, all these other players, Reggie Miller, all these players always say, man, we would have never done that. I don't see an NBA era where you get an NBA all-star who, forget about the panic, but decides to join a team with 4 other all-stars, and he's in the most important year of his career. So what does he gain? What is it worth? It's only worth something if he's able to repair his image, if he's able to show another organization, because the Pelicans was the only organization since he's left high school that he didn't have problems with. And the people at Kentucky, they do all they can to try to protect DeMarcus, but you're talking about a guy that's caused a lot of people a lot of different issues. And
he caused problems from Team USA. If you listen to Mike D'Antoni.
Can't that also factor in maybe why he wasn't such a valuable
Absolutely, but the gulf between not being the most valuable asset and taking less money than Ersan Ilyasova is an enormous gulf.
No, he would have to have some setback as far as his Achilles this offseason, and that be public knowledge for him to call the Warriors. The Warriors didn't call him. Like, he called the Warriors.
So do you put more blame on the concept of the super team on the player or on the team? Is it the Warriors or is it Boogie Cousins?
Listen, I'll go also, I hear from people, what are they supposed to, Draymond's not supposed to recruit him. Yeah, how about that? How about that? What is that a bridge too far? Is it a bridge too far to say, you know what, we swept the finals? We are 3 out of 4 champions, 2-time defending champions, maybe 4 in a row if Draymond, don't get suspended for repeatedly attacking the groin area of players during the playoffs. Maybe I'm going to set my John Calipari recruitment hat down for an offseason. Is that ridiculous to say? Like, we are now in a situation where Klay Thompson is the 2nd greatest shooter ever, and he is the 5th most accomplished player on the team.
Now, I don't blame anyone. I don't think you have to sit here and try to blame someone this morning because it's the owner's responsibility to try to maintain the championship level on the court and off the court. They got one more season in Oracle. They got a beautiful new place that they're transitioning to. They got a beautiful practice facility. I mean, they are I mean, they are the light
Gold standard.
You know, the gold standard for the NBA. The players. It's the players' responsibility to maintain the relationships that they have, either on the team or around the league, so that they can get better. So the ownership is doing exactly what they're doing. Draymond, I ain't got no problem with Draymond. Draymond's doing what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to take care of his body, take care of his current teammates, and try to fill out the rest of the roster so that they can get better, so that they can continue this run that they're on. That's the only way that Draymond's going to be remembered.
Right.
Like, as a role player on a great team, the only way it's going to be remembered is, man, did we win 4, 5? So I got no problem with that. My biggest problem is with the other great players in the NBA saying, you know something, I'm getting ready to help them out to make it easier for them. That's my only problem.
Like, it's one thing, Charles Barkley, at the end of his long, storied career, who could never quite get over the Michael Jordan hump, saying, you know what, I'm going to, for my last few years, go to Houston, a guy that's won a championship, really the only guy in the league that's won a championship, the best player other than Jordan, join Akeem in my last couple years. Boogie Cousins is in the prime of his career. I understand
he's 27 years old.
I understand he's coming off a torn Achilles. I get it. But the idea, and it is amazing to me, that the narrative push by a lot of influential people trying to make it seem like he had no other choice. Boogie was going to be unemployed. Yeah. It's just nonsense.
Is there a team you would have wanted? Would you have rather him stay with the Pelicans? Or
29 others.
We were hoping he stayed with the Pelicans, though. To see what him, man, I mean, what
but
him and
the Pelicans brought in Julius Randle, did it really leave room for him?
Absolutely.
It don't matter, but you asked me the question.
No.
He was better. And what they had last year with the Brow was phenomenal. It was special. Like, we hadn't seen that type of productivity. So this is what happens. I was really pulling for Boogie. I was hoping for him to go with the Brow because I thought it was a unique combination of skill sets that we would not see together for a long, long time. It's hard for me to cheer for Boogie going to Golden State.
Right.
Now, I'm not cheering against him, but it's just hard for me to cheer for him.
And even with Julius Randle, they still could have brought him back, or they could have signed and trade with Washington. That was all things they were still working towards with Boogie Cousins in New Orleans.
All right, we got to leave it there. Take a break. Coming up, how about the Los Angeles Lakers? Do they have to go all in to trade for Kawhi? We'll talk about that, see where things are next on First Things First.
Hi, I'm Alexi Lawless. I used to play soccer back in the 1900s for the U.S. Now you can find me talking about soccer this summer during the World Cup on Fox. Now through July 15th, you can get daily FIFA World Cup updates from me through your Alexa-enabled device. Just say, Alexa, play the Fox Sports Flash briefing, and you'll get the latest tournament news straight from Russia. Alexa and Alexi. Now that's a winning team. Don't forget to watch the 2018 FIFA World Cup all tournament long live on Fox and FS1.
All right, let's talk Kawhi Leonard. As of this morning, he is still a Spur. As of sometime last season, he no longer wanted to be a Spur. By all reports, he still very much wants to play in Los Angeles, but the Spurs have reportedly been unhappy with the trade offers they've been receiving. In fact, the Lakers' proposals for Kawhi have reportedly been considered underwhelming and flat out unacceptable. CC, are the Lakers making a mistake not going all out to get Kawhi Leonard right now?
Well, given also the latest news as far as Boogie Cousins joining Golden State, I believe that Magic Johnson, that people with the Kawhi thing, there's some things that people misunderstand. They think that Kawhi has demanded a trade to the Lakers. No, he hadn't. He'll go anywhere in L.A. Like, he don't mind playing in the same building. Like, Kawhi does not have a preference over Magic, LeBron, and the Lakers over the Clippers. Now, people might think that he does, and he's demanded that. No, he hasn't. He's from San Diego, and he wants to go back to Los Angeles. He believes this is the only time in his career that he can control where he's going. And he doesn't care about the money. He believes he'll be a lot happier playing basketball in Los Angeles, and that's why he's not concerned about the Supermax contract and the amount of money. He's never lived his life for money, and that's not a concern of his.
So the point you made at the beginning, one people need to understand, Kawhi Leonard has demanded a trade to the city of Los Angeles.
Yes.
Not to a team there. Kawhi Leonard also felt this way whether LeBron went to the Lakers or not. and Kawhi Leonard, from your understanding, is agnostic to a degree about which team in Los Angeles he goes to. And tell me if I'm taking this step too far, there's an argument to be made that if Kawhi, let's say Kawhi hits true free agency, doesn't get traded. I understand that's not what he wants, but let's just say the Spurs hold the fort. Maybe Kawhi sits out the year, whatever it is. That with the Lakers and Clippers come calling, that he could potentially prefer the Clippers because of maybe more trust in Jerry West over Magic, maybe more trust in Doc over Luke Walton. And, well, but what about teaming up with LeBron? See, you know Kawhi a lot better than I do. You've told me Kawhi is not he's more like Russ than any of the other superstars when it comes to teaming up.
Yes, Kawhi feels as if he has a winning record against all the top players in the NBA. He feels like he'll play against LeBron. He doesn't care where LeBron is. He'll play against KD. He'll play against Steph. He'll play against Russ. Now, he's kind of fond of Russ, the way Russ treated the KD situation when KD didn't necessarily tell him and went off in the middle of the night and decided to sign with Golden State. He likes Russ for the fact that Russ is not begging guys to come play with them, but Russ is going at the best players in the world.
And one other point, and then I want to get to the Boogie part of this, which is from your understanding, the reports that if Kawhi gets traded to Philly, for example, he could potentially stay there long term, those are the opposite of true, correct?
Yes, they have expressed to San Antonio there are no Paul George deals. So trade me to Los Angeles, or you are basically wasting your time. So Boston, Philadelphia, all those teams, there's really not a good reason for them to get into the hunt as far as trading for Kawhi, because he's not going to go to either one of those teams.
One of the things we talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks, right or wrong, is that Kawhi wanted to team up with LeBron, with the Lakers, and compete against the Warriors. And that's just what it seemed to be. Does this put a dent in the narrative now that Paul George stays in Oklahoma City, that Kawhi doesn't care if he goes to the Lakers or the Clippers, and he might even prefer the Clippers over the Lakers, that maybe LeBron is not exactly as attractive of a teammate, so for the other superstars, as we all thought he was a couple weeks ago?
The Paul George information as far as him going to OKC, that's not new amongst NBA players. Kawhi knew about that over a month ago. The way it was communicated to me was Kawhi has exchanged information with all the people, with Paul George's people, with LeBron's people, or anyone else out there who inquired about him. I'm not up to teaming up. I'm not about trying to be with one player. I'm going to Los Angeles, and that could be the Lakers or that could be the Clippers, and I don't care who's there. He believes even if he goes to the Clippers, then in the summer of 2019, the other free agents, with that to be a free agent year, he believes those guys will join him because they believe that Kawhi is a more attractive piece to join than any of the other top 5 players because he's the least amount of maintenance, he doesn't need the basketball, and he doesn't care about who's on the team. He don't want to select the players. He just wants to come to the gym and be able to play basketball.
And that speaks to a lot of people's response to the Boogie signing was, well, now if you're the Lakers, why would you trade your young pieces for Kawhi? Why don't you just wait a year? Even with Kawhi, you're not beating the Warriors with Boogie. So why don't you wait a year, hold on to Ingram, and then bring him in? Your information's critical here. What you're saying is very clearly, and by the way, Chris Broussard reported something similar late last night.
Yes.
Which is that if the Lakers do not get Kawhi Leonard this offseason, they might never get him. He might decide to go to the other team in Los Angeles because it's about the city and not the franchise.
Yeah, don't try to do the same thing because Magic Johnson runs the risk of this. Last year, Paul George, he's coming to Los Angeles. They just take it for granted. There's no need to trade for him. Let him go to OKC. They should have traded for him. Kawhi, you better trade for Kawhi compared to waiting on Kawhi to be a free agent, thinking he's going to select the Lakers. I wouldn't depend on that. So Magic Johnson, this is critical. Do not have the same approach that you have with Paul George. Make your best offer to San Antonio and trade for Kawhi. You already have LeBron. You should be increasing your offer compared to yesterday. We talked about, because the marketplace, I would be decreasing my offer, making my offer less attractive.
And then quickly, do the Clippers have anything they can trade for if they want to try to jump and undercut the Lakers?
They had the 12th and 13th picks. So now those things are less valuable because they're human beings instead of picks that the Spurs would get into. But right now, the Lakers' offer is so paltry that, yes, they could be superseded by the Clippers. And Jerry West is a savvy manager.
Yeah.
But people also need to think about this part of it. LeBron signed a 3+1 with Los Angeles. He is there for the rest of his prime, however long that is. Boogie is gone. Paul George is gone. If Kawhi not only doesn't join him, but is recruiting essentially against him, even if he's not a part of the recruitment process. If now the other team in L.A. can offer the same beaches with a player that is not quite as good as LeBron, but 6 years younger, and
not the attention.
Finish your sentence.
No, I mean, that's then all of a sudden LeBron's paths to competing for another championship, it's hard to find them because there's only so many great players in this league. And by the way, it's another guy in the West LeBron would have to compete against in Kawhi Leonard. And a guy who, like you mentioned, 12-8 in his career against LeBron. When you said he feels like he has a winning record against LeBron, he does have a winning record against LeBron.
Watch LeBron just go back to Cleveland.
I don't think that's possible. Oh, yeah, the old switcheroo.
Yeah, the old DeAndre Jordan from Texas. Coming up, could Lonzo Ball be on his way out of L.A.? That's next on First Things First. Arizona rookie quarterback Josh Rosen is apparently making quite the impression. Cardinals All-Pro cornerback Patrick Peterson described Rosen's IQ as off the charts. Cece, how much does that factor into quarterback success, your IQ?
It's overrated. I got a smart guy with me. He can't play in the NFL. Patrick Peterson, be impressed with him. Go to meetings with him, remembering stuff. You'd be like, my God, I'm so impressed. But playing football? Watch the mini camp praise. I only give praise what they do in the game.
Okay.
All right? Deshaun Watson, last year, mini camp, awful. Preseason, awful. The boy can play football. All right? The NFL is about being able to play. Now, being smart and a quarterback, does that help? But, yeah, I need to see some game tape. I need TT. That's turf time. When I see that, then I'll give out all the praise.
All right, that's all totally fair. What I will say is Rosen, more than I would say most rookies, had a higher bar to clear with some of his teammates at least because of the narrative going in surrounding.
I don't think so. Players don't, whatever you did in college, when you come into an NFL locker room, like we don't care nothing about all that stuff. We don't care about all the criticism. We're just trying to make him the best player that we can.
All right, to the NBA now. The Cavs will pick up the pieces after getting left at the altar when LeBron James went to L.A. According to reports, they're not interested in trading Kevin Love or tanking in any way. They'd like to start building around young draft pick Colin Sexton. Nick, how good will the Cavs be next season, realistically?
They'll be terrible, and they should trade Kevin Love for a first-round pick if they can. And maybe the Cavs forgot this. If they're not terrible, they lose their first-round pick. They lose that pick to Atlanta if it's outside of the top 10. So it's in their interest to be awful. Now they're going to be awful whether they want to be or not. But Kevin Love, he's not going to be part of a winning Cavs team again. So get what the most you can for him. I would imagine at the deadline, Kevin Love could be on the move.
They're going to be bad. I believe they're going to move Kevin Love. I believe once you get into the season, it's nice talking off season. I believe they're going to move Kevin Love.
All right, to the NBA Summer League now. Trae Young had a bit of a tough debut for the Hawks. 4 of 20, 16 points. Chris, what do you make of Trae Young's start?
I'm not going to overreact to this. It's harder for a smaller player, especially in the NBA. I've seen this happen too many times. People forget all the great shooters that we've seen in college scoring 25 to 30 points a game. Coming to the NBA, they struggle. He struggled last night. I don't hope that he struggles, but we just haven't seen that type of player be very, very successful.
I don't care what guys do in Summer League or in preseason. I want to see them CT, court time in the NBA during the regular season. Listen, Trae, this is a terrible start for Trae Young. There's no way to spin that. I think he was 0 for 11 from 3. Also, though, we have seen a lot of guys score 20-plus in college. He had the best freshman season anyone has had since Kevin Durant. That's on a big university as well, the Big 12 like Durant. Durant was. That's why I'm bullish on Trae Young.
Yeah, he had an awful night, but he did make 1 3. He was 1 out of 11.
Oh, 1 of 11. I apologize. Thank you.
Give it to him. Don't rob the kid.
Back to our top story now. The Warriors signed Boogie Cousins to a 1-year deal for just over $5 million. Boogie averaged 25 points, 13 rebounds a game last season before tearing his Achilles in January. CC, how much better does signing DeMarcus Cousins make the Golden State Warriors?
Well, first, I'll get my guy Dusty and our research staff to look up what was the best player that ever signed for that 5.5, that mid-cap exception. Because I remember LeBron in Miami, I think they added like Ray Allen for that. Shane Battier type players. Typically, they're older players that have either won and have some championship experience, can still shoot, or, 10 to 15 minutes spot duty. And if you need an emergency starter, they're able to fill in. So we're not used to superstar players taking this reduction, like this huge risk, let alone we haven't seen the player of his quality do that. But then he's joining the best team that we've seen in the modern era as far as the NBA. So to me, it's not good for the NBA, for Golden State and what they're trying to accomplish. It allows them to now, one of the most significant things for them not being able to repeat was the injury. When we talk about injury, and Nick pointed this out to me yesterday and this morning, all the paths to trying to win a championship are pretty much covered. Now they can sustain some type of injury because they got 5 All-Stars.
Listen, how much better is he going to make them? I mean, their offense is operating at almost peak historic capacity. Like, the offense literally, there's only so many points you can score per 100 possessions in an NBA game, even if it's 92 Dream Team. You know what I mean? Like, and the Warriors are basically right there. They're at peak offensive efficiency, and he is an offensive player. So he's not going to make their offense much better because their offense can't be much better. But what he is all of a sudden you have one of the 15 best players in the league, and he's a contingency plan. He's a guy you don't need at all, but if you do suffer a devastating injury or two, you can then all of a sudden rework your offense a bit to feature him more. That's why he's so valuable to them, because now if Kevin Durant, remember when Zaza, or JaVale, I think it was Zaza 2 years ago fell into Kevin Durant's knee, and you thought Durant, when he was going off the court, he said he was in tears because he thought his season was over. If, God forbid, if something like that were to happen this year to one of their stars, they're fine. Like, they are fine. And so that's where his real value is, and he's taking minutes from Zaza and JaVale.
Yeah, the one thing is style. We know the style for which they play. Now, once you get into the playoffs, we know the pace of the games, it slows down. What he adds is, for 5 to 9 minutes, 10 minutes during the game, if you want to go get some buckets in the paint, you can do that.
That's a great point.
I mean, like, you can do it. You talking about foul trouble? Like, they already get you into foul trouble. But if you want to go get someone into foul trouble on the opposition to pile up the fouls, he's also a good free throw shooter. And also, those fouls compounded late, the players end up shooting the free throws, end up being Steph, KD, because you get 2 or 3 fouls, and then you foul KD, they're in the bonus.
Well, and think about the only team since they got Kevin Durant to push this Warriors team, the Rockets. The Rockets' small ball lineup actually outperformed the Warriors. So they had P.J. Tucker playing center. P.J. Tucker is 6 feet 5 inches tall. And what they did basically was, you know what? If you're going to run plays for Zaza because you have a 7-inch height advantage, fine. Now what the Warriors can do is, against that Rockets small ball lineup with P.J. Tucker at center, they have the most skilled offensive big man in basketball to go run that lineup off the court. Like that when they want to. The break, in case of emergency glass, can be, all right, you guys want to trot out 5 guys under 6'7", we'll put Boogie out there to punish you.
All right, let's move on to the Lakers, who followed up the LeBron signing by getting Rajon Rondo. He's heading to Los Angeles on a 1-year, $9 million deal. Last year, Rondo stepped it up in the playoffs, averaging 10 points, 12 assists for the Pelicans. CC, is Rondo a good fit with LeBron?
I believe he's a good fit on a veteran team. He's a good fit when you have a young point guard. He is He's insurance in case Lonzo, the physical toll of the NBA, gets the best of him. If you need a guy that can start 20 games for you because of injury, you have to have that in place. Rondo can do that. If you get in a tight situation, series in the playoff, because I believe that the Lakers are a playoff team, Rondo does help you. A guy like Rondo, it makes the younger players, too, it makes the practices more attentive. Like, you can't slack off. You can't worry about if you're late to practice, you're not up on the matchups. You're not studying because Rondo is a smart ball player, and he's going to demand things from Lonzo that you can't demand when you have two younger players. When you have a young player who's a star and you have someone as his backup, you need a veteran, someone who's been successful in the league that can keep that pressure on him. So I like having guys like Rondo where you have not committed long-term. You know that Rondo's been successful in this league. He's also been a champion. The style for which he plays is totally different than what Lonzo plays. So I do believe that he can benefit from running a ball club. Now, what I don't like is the way he struggles is they struggle with the same thing. Neither one of them are effective jump shooters. Lonzo, a better shooter than Rondo, but I believe that the pluses of having a veteran like him on the roster, it really helps those younger players, and I believe it helps ball.
Listen, people are going to point out the shooting. That the best offensive lineups with LeBron and LeBron plus shooters, they've now added a few guys that are not shooters. Lance Stephenson is one of the worst high-volume three-point shooters in modern NBA history. That's not an overstatement. That's a fact. Rondo, throughout his career, has just been not a reluctant shooter, a guy who refused to shoot until the last few years. Now, the last few years, he shot over 33% from three each year, and he takes a few more. But still, no one's ever going to consider Rondo a knockdown shooter. But I can tell you who does think he's a good fit with LeBron James. LeBron James. This is a guy that LeBron gave two quotes in the last 6 months. One was about Rondo specifically, saying he's one of the highest IQ players he's ever played against, that he calls out the opposing team's sets as they're running them, that he has a true photographic memory for these things. And then LeBron gave another quote right after the finals, talking about how the Warriors...
How do you defeat Golden State? What type of players do you need?
Smart players, high IQ players. And Rondo, you can make an argument Rondo has the highest basketball IQ of anyone in the league. You can't,
Wow.
And he is playoff proven.
Yeah.
This guy from his first day in Boston was a big-time player in big playoff games. Now, he's older. He's also a guy you can't rely on throughout the entirety of the season. He is limited offensively. I'm not acting like he's a perfect player by any stretch, and they might have overpaid for him slightly. But LeBron wanted to play with Rajon Rondo. That much I can tell you.
This is a Lakers team that went from a locker room that had virtually no playoff experience last year to one that now does have veterans in that locker room and playoff experience, which really helps out. But then you have to ask the question, does this make Lonzo Ball expendable? He said he's not running at all. He wants to stay there. He wants to stay in that position. He wants to compete. But does it make Lonzo Ball expendable?
No. No, Rondo is not the future of basketball in Los Angeles. Magic Johnson, something would have to significant happen for Magic Johnson to draft Lonzo Ball, to get Rondo as a free agent, and to think that their basketball future is brighter. Now, if they have to include Lonzo in the deal,
in the Kawhi deal.
Yeah, like you got to do what you got to do to get Kawhi, but it's not as if Rondo is there to replace him. They are reluctant to build to include Lonzo in it. Now, I'm not even going to go on the San Antonio doesn't want Lonzo. I'm not believing that to be true.
I don't believe that to be true either. I think Popovich could mute the LeVar thing instantly, and I don't think LeVar's moving to San Antonio, period, point blank. Not with what he's trying to do with that league he has out in the West Coast. I just don't think that's going to happen. I do think this makes Lonzo expendable in a Kawhi trade. I do think you now can say in the 2018 season, we have a guy who can give us the exact level of production we would anticipate from Lonzo, and if we could bring in Kawhi Leonard. Now, if they make a trade for Kawhi that does not include Lonzo, then I would say Lonzo's going to be on this team for the next 5, 8, 10, 12 years. Like, I don't think they want to move Lonzo, but this is a good contingency plan.
Yeah.
This is a good, if the Spurs, if they do feel like, man, we really have to push all our chips in the middle of the table, we were offering Ingram plus a first. It does seem like the one player the Lakers are most hesitant to trade is Kuzma. So now would they, push comes to shove, would they maybe hold on to Kuzma, include Lonzo now that they have Rondo? I think that's a possibility. So I do think it makes him expendable if the net result is Kawhi Leonard.
Do you know who else is available to join the Warriors if they need someone else?
Who?
Kam Chancellor.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
if
that's
they
true.
Do. Coming up, how will the Legion of Boom be remembered now that Kam Chancellor is retiring? He's not really joining the Warriors because that would be
Messi as
weird.
well.
Just another Tuesday, Nick.
It is Tuesday, first things first. Here, so let's talk football. Because it's football. Kam Chancellor announced on Twitter that he believes he's played his last career game. He is not officially retired, but Chancellor said in the long Twitter post he doesn't believe he will be medically cleared to play. This continues the end of the Legion of Boom in Seattle with Richard Sherman now in the 49ers and Earl Thomas still holding out for a new deal. Kenny, I'll start with you. All that talent, one Super Bowl title. Looking back, do you think the Seahawks underachieved with what that defense looked like for so many years?
I don't want to say they underachieved, but, I mean, they came within one play of being able to win another Super Bowl title, that being Super Bowl 49, when Darrell Bevell, for some reason, decided that it was a better idea to try to throw the ball into the end zone from the 1-yard line rather than run Marshawn Lynch. But when I look at that defense, I mean, they've been the most dominant defense in the NFL for the better part of this decade. So I don't want to say that that group underachieved, but when I'm looking at this Seattle Seahawks team right now, the identity of the team and how they're going to have to win is going to look different than it did in the early part of this decade. I mean, it's going to have to be the offense that wins the day for the Seattle Seahawks. That's why they've tried to retool the offensive line. They drafted Rashard Penny out of San Diego State in the first round because they're going to go with that ground game, try to take some pressure off of Russell Wilson. They asked him to do way too much last year. But I think if this team is going to be competitive and get back to the postseason, it's not going to be because of the defense. It's going to be because of the offense.
Canty, I know that you have lived by the theory you sell tickets with offensive football, you win championships with defensive football. But the history of football would tell you over the last 40 years, though, it's hard to win multiple championships being a dominant defensive team. Look at the great Ray Lewis, going to be one of my teammates in the Hall of Fame this summer, enshrined in August. Been out of the game 5 years. I think he's a great example. How many Super Bowls did Ray win?
2.
Ray
He won two,
but the
one
second,
early,
right,
and then one
late,
going out.
Right, and that wasn't a overwhelming dominant defense.
That was an opportunistic defense.
Yes.
The best defense I've ever seen was the '85 Bears. How many Super Bowls did they win?
One.
So when you look at the greatest defense that have ever played this, I understand the question. The question is legitimate. But overachieve based on the duplicate, the model that we've seen, this defense wasn't as good as Ray Lewis, to me. This defense was not as good as the '85 Bears.
I'll throw in the 02 Bucks. Right? Were
That
they
was a
on
really good
par with the
defense.
02 Bucks? I mean, the 02 Bucks, though, by the way, won once.
And they came up short a couple times. We just don't have blaming the coach as an excuse. So this is about what history says. If you are a great defense, so if you are an owner and you are a coach and you're building a great defense, you need to know this. It's going to be hard for you to win more than one Super Bowl in that period.
Here's the reason why I think the underachievement is a real discussion point. Is those teams, who's the quarterback for that 2000 Ravens? Trent Dilfer? 85.
Yeah, it was Trent Dilfer, Tony Banks.
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
02 Bucks was Brad Johnson. 85 Bears, Jim McMahon. None of those guys as good as Russell Wilson, and none of them as good as Russell Wilson right out of the gate. Russell Wilson was outstanding by week 6 of his rookie year. And so they had that going for them as well. And in his prime, all-pro Marshawn Lynch, which is why Russell's rookie year, they had a lead to go to the NFC Championship game with less than a minute left in Atlanta after a great second-half comeback. Then Matt Bryant hits a field goal to beat them. They dominate the Super Bowl against the Broncos, as dominant of a Super Bowl performance as we've seen in the last decade.
Since the '85 Bears.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
People forget, CC.
As dominant
Gotta
as a
remind them.
defensive performance. Well, the Rays defense didn't allow a score. It was on the kick return. That was the only reason they didn't get the shutout. But I mean, that dominant offensively and defensively, though. I mean, they won 43-8. And then, so it was the next year. It's not just the Patriots year, but that year 4 that starts off with a Kam Chancellor holdout, by the way, and the team doesn't get home field, and then the Panthers pass them up. Like
the one reason why I can debate that part of it is because, yeah, you make a point about Russell Wilson, but you seem, and I know it's on purpose, you don't talk about that awful offensive line. I mean, they have guys that weren't even playing college football in front of Russell Wilson. So we need to tell people that part, you know.
Well, did you feel, I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you feel the offensive line was that bad early on?
They had a defensive tackle from NC State play offensive guard. So, yeah, it was
probably from the very beginning.
Yeah, from the very beginning.
In this model,
that bad.
their offensive line has always been very, very bad. And the other point that no one brings up is in this era with Pete Carroll, in that era that you think they should win multiple Super Bowls, check out their record on the road compared to them other great defenses.
Not very good.
The 85 Bears were not like that. Check them out. They are a 500 team when they leave Seattle. So it's hard to win multiple Super Bowls when you're only going to go 4-4 on the road.
How do you spin this forward now? You have Russell Wilson, but talk to me about the defense they have now without Cam. Cam does indeed sit out, or is actually retired for the...
Well, they still have some playmakers. They have Bobby Wagner. They have Frank Clark, who's an emerging pass rusher. They'll continue to develop some guys based on what they do draft and philosophically. But I'm just looking at this team, and I'm saying that they're going to have to control time of possession now. That's how they're going to have to win games, being able to grind it out with that offensive line that they're trying to rebuild, trying to figure out how to be successful going that direction, just because defensively you're going to lose a lot of pieces. That's what happens in a salary cap sport, and that's why I think it's harder now more so than ever to keep a championship caliber defense together. Look at what happened to the Denver Broncos defense. Seemed like that disappeared overnight, that group that won Super Bowl 50. So I'm just looking at what Russell Wilson is going to have to do. A lot is on his shoulders right now, and that's why they paid him that contract. They're going to have to give him some more money soon because of all these other quarterbacks reeing up. But when I look at this team, and that's why Pete Carroll decided to draft Rashard Penny, they're going to have to be an offensive-minded team, control time of possession. When you have a salary cap sport, the best thing to be able to take advantage of is a quarterback on a rookie deal because you can pay all those guys top dollar on the defensive side of the ball. And then the hope is that your quarterback will evolve to somebody that's capable of carrying the team, somebody that can mitigate all the deficiencies that you have in those other respective units.
Canty, my biggest concern in this era of football is something I know you're concerned about. With the new CBA you have, the lack of practice time, it's hard to play the style of football in the type of intensity that Seattle plays with. You can't practice with that type of intensity. It's been, you can't do it.
Well, they do, and that's why Seattle ended up getting in trouble with the NFLPA.
So now the eyes of the NFL are on Seattle every time they practice, so it's hard to develop the type of players that they did. And Kam Chancellor, finding him from the CFL.
Right.
All right? Brandon Browner, finding him. Richard Sherman, late in the draft. Like all these people trading for Marshawn Lynch, who was, man, nothing but trouble wherever he had been before that. So now with the NFL and the new rules, how do you move forward in Pete Carroll? And to me, that's a question that they're going to have to answer that I believe is far more important than how successful they were in the past.
I also think the audience should know this because it seems jarring. Wow, 6 starters left from the Super Bowl team. Super Bowl teams 5 years ago. And this is a league where the average career is 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And so with great teams, you usually see them stick together a little bit longer than this. But so that 6 out of 20, you only have 22 starters. So 6 out of 22 is like around 32%. Like, that's not that far off what the league average is. For how many, if you just pick the Buffalo Bills, how many starters they got left from the 2013 team? Like, it's not that jarring. It's only jarring because they walked off that field after beating down the Broncos, and it felt to me like, oh, this could be the start of something very special, and that was the best it ever got for them.
All right, Chris, Kenny, thank you
Great
so much
job,
for hanging out with us today.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your summer. We'll see you soon. Coming up, did Boogie Cousins ruin the NBA? That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. NBA champ Antoine Walker is here because we have a lot to break down, Antoine.
You're going to have to defend Kentucky.
Yeah,
I'm not giving you no 5. Don't be reaching over here.
We have a lot to talk to you about. All right.
I know y'all make more than that going to Kentucky. Jesus.
That was actually funny.
Taking these papers.
In an effort to fire up my partner Nick right here, the NBA super team just got more super. The Warriors signed DeMarcus Cousins to a 1-year, $5.3 million deal. Boogie, coming off that Achilles injury, which limited his market value, or so he thought. He said he had no other offers, but that was early on, so he jumped on the chance to join the defending champs. All right, a lot of angles on this one. Antoine, first, what was your reaction to this move?
Obviously, my initial reaction, I'm a guy that hated Kevin Durant's move, and then
Obviously, when the Cousins make this move, I hate it. Just as a competitor, when you go to a team that's already built and set, and you don't necessarily fit in with them. That's the thing that's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Offensively, yes, he's a great passer. He can shoot the basketball, space the floor, but he's not very good on defense.
He's not a good pick and roll defender.
He doesn't. That best lineup is with Draymond Green at the 5, so he's not going to play big minutes in certain situations and games and come playoff time. He's never been to the playoffs. He's never played in big games. So, and he has his temper's. You got him and Draymond Green. You don't know what you may get. Both of these guys go after the referees very hard. They've got the history of that. So you put that in the equation. He's not just a great fit. I know everybody in the league is like, oh, look at DeMarcus Cousins on paper. It looks scary because arguably he's probably a top 15 player in this league. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a great fit because defensively he's going to have problems. His attitude, he's in a contract year. He put himself on another contract year. And obviously he went there because the market was not there for him.
See, this is you saying this reminds me of something I said, which was when Durant went to Golden State. And it was obviously wishful thinking, but I was like, man, that was the best team I've ever seen as it was. I know Durant's better than Harrison Barnes, but he's going to take shots from Steph. He's going to change the way they do things. Why wouldn't you just run it back? And then you go and see him, you're like, oh, that's why. And so everything you're saying is true in the macro. In the micro, the minutes that Zaza Pachulia and JaVale McGee were getting are now going to the best offensive big man in basketball. It's not an ideal fit. And he doesn't make, and this is why it's so frustrating for me. DeMarcus Cousins going to the vast majority of teams in the league would be a franchise changer. Right? He would make the Wizards in a sign-and trade, which is something the Pelicans were working on. They wouldn't have lost Beal or Wall. It would have been like Otto Porter, a few other pieces, because they lost Marcin Gortat, if you remember. Like a sign-and-trade to Washington, and it's like, oh, that makes them much more interesting. They're one of the contenders in the East. He makes the Warriors less better, if you will, than he would any other team in basketball. But it's a hell of an insurance policy. It's a hell of in case someone gets hurt.
Well, if he comes back healthy, he helps them through the season. We know they struggle. They can get through an injury. If somebody gets hurt, you got multiple guys now you can play. If they decide to bring him off the bench, we don't know if they're going to start him or bring him off the bench because he probably suits better coming off the bench where you can feature him. DeMarcus Cousins is a volume shooter. It's not a guy that shoots 55, 60% from the field. So he needs, attempts. He needs to, get the ball. So maybe coming off the bench is the best thing for him. So obviously Steve Kerr has to figure that out. But offensively, he's going to be good enough to play with them because his ability to pass the basketball. This guy averages 5 assists last year, 4.5 the year before that. So he'll pass the basketball. He can shoot the 3. So he can fit in with them offensively. Defensively, it's a whole another animal.
Do you think he's able to parlay this in to get the big contract? Because that's what he's banking on. Having a good year there, on and off the court. If you were a betting man, next year at this time, is someone signing him to a multi-year contract because he has helped been a part of them three-peating, or do you think this goes the other way?
No, I think it helps him because now he's going to be around, obviously 4 other All-Stars, guys that have won championships. He's not the main focal point. They're going to be able to control him. I think that's what Steve Kerr is going to rely on, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green being able to control him. We're going to finally get to see him play on the big stage. And I think that's going to be, if he can play well on the big stage, and you don't have to put up huge numbers to say he play well. Just help them win another title. He'll be open again in the free agent market in 2019 to make a lot of money.
So that's my question, is he's not in an organization now where they're relying on him to put up big numbers. You're not going to see what you saw from him last year. So are the main qualifiers just stay healthy, don't be a distraction, keep yourself out of trouble? If you can do all those, you warrant yourself a big max
without
contract
question. He's only going to be 28
regardless
years old.
of the numbers?
He's going to be 28. So you definitely got to consider that. That's what he's got to be thinking. And obviously, I think going to Golden State, he says he's going to be ready for training camp. He know he can take his time.
I think that's one of the keys to it because they're such a good team. Now, there's no pressure on him to rush back. If I'm him, I'm trying to come back in January. I'm trying to come back, get me some run in before the All-Star break, and then the All-Star break until the end of the season, that's going to be my regular season. That part in January to the All-Star break is going to be my training camp.
All-Star break. I agree with you, Chris. He has to be in the best shape of his life
to play with Golden State. They're not going to wait on him to come down court and throw it in the post to him. They're going to run. They get out in transition. He's going to have to be in the best shape of his life, so he's going to have to wait and pick the right time to come back.
I want to circle back to the beginning part where you said you don't like this. You and I were on the same page on the Durant thing. And the Warriors have now have made two moves that are totally unprecedented in scope in NBA history. Like, I see people, and it's as if they either have no idea of what the NBA history is, or they think people don't have Google.
Or they don't care.
They're right, sure. They're like, oh, well, what about when Barkley joined? Barkley was on his last legs when he went to Houston. He was at the end of his career. Oh, what about Peyton and Malone joining the Lakers? That was the end of their careers.
Yeah, Karl Malone, I think $1.89 million for 1 year. Peyton, late in his career, he signed a 2-year deal for a little more than $10 million.
Well, what about the big three in Boston? The Celtics were a disaster. They were thinking, are we going to have to trade Pierce? Poor Kevin Garnett had gotten out of the first round of the playoffs once in his whole career, and they bring them in, and then Ray Allen agrees to it. Oh, well, LeBron in Miami then. The Heat had not won a playoff series in 4 years. Chris Bosh had won 3 playoff games in his career, and they came together. And then there's Golden State. We're the first unprecedented move. It's not only a 73-win team adding an MVP, it's the MVP leaving a team with the top 10 teammate in Russ. And now, to double down on that, to add a 27-year-old All-NBA guy with the mid-level exception, with the same money it took to get Aaron Baines, there is no precedent for either of these moves, which is why it rubs me the wrong way, and I assume this is why it rubs you.
I mean, I'm a competitor. I want to compete against the best. He could change so many organizations, DeMarcus Cousins. It's a difference if he was a guy that wasn't going to change. He can actually change organizations where he can be a guy that stays 4 or 5 years and actually competes. He dominated in the West. This is where all the talent's at in the West. He dominated in the West. So he's going to make any team better. Obviously, Golden State doesn't really need him. So he's going to be in a situation where he probably plays 20 minutes a night. They probably give him some minutes early and make it seem like they're trying to, make it work. But when it gets to the bread and butter, they're playing that, what's it called, the Hampton Five? Mm-hmm. They playing that small unit. That's their best lineup right now, especially if Andre Iguodala's healthy.
Where would you have liked to have seen him go?
Wow, I would have liked to see them stay in New Orleans. I just felt like they were 27-21 with him. Without him, they was 21-13. I thought they was building something there. They kind of figured it out a little bit, him and Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Could have been a situation like Tim Duncan, David Robinson, where it's a different style of basketball we would have saw in New Orleans, but they were figuring it out. I would have loved to see them stay there.
Yeah, and Drew Holiday emerging.
Yes.